Hey y'all! First of all, Merry Christmas. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful holiday season. Yesterday was Christmas, today is the 26th, and I have a lot to update you guys on. I'm gonna show you how my garden's doing. I'm gonna tell you guys what seeds I'm sowing a day after Christmas during this winter season, and I'm also going to give you guys updates on our health, how Luis and I are doing, how Luis's sister Jeanette is doing. I have to get to that, so let's get started. Today I am modeling a Roots and Refuge Farm hoodie that Luis actually got me for Christmas. It says, "Real food comes dirty." If y'all haven't heard of Roots and Refuge Farm, go ahead and check out their channel. Jess over there and Maya, they are amazing people, very positive. They do gardening videos. They have videos on raising your own meat pigs, and they have chicken videos, goats, dairy goats, all kinds of things. Jess from Roots and Refuge Farm is one of my favorite YouTubers to follow. She is just such a kind-hearted person who is so compassionate, and she shares amazing educational videos on how to grow your own food, how to garden. Oh my goodness, go check her out if you haven't already. I'm sure a lot of people say this, but I am truly one of her biggest fans. For those of you guys that are new to our channel, I noticed we have a few new subscribers down there. I am living here in the middle of this little small rural town, and we are trying to homestead in this little backyard. You guys saw it. That's it. That's how big this backyard is. Now, we have a dream, and our dream is big. One day we are gonna get a lot of land with some acreage, have a little farmhouse. We plan on having milking goats, some meat pigs, and of course bringing our laying hens along with us for the ride. We also have some lovely dogs. We got a Borzoi. How's my Evie doing? You hanging out? I'm soaking up some vitamin D today. Yeah, it's a beautiful day to be sitting outside. It's really nice today. And one of our rescues, Mr. Dyson. Hey, how are you? And we do occasionally foster dogs and cats, and I love to garden. So that's us. During the spring and summer, I love to do garden videos, walkthroughs, weekly tours to show you guys the growth cycles, the stages, and what kind of harvest each of the plants that I grow produce here in this little backyard homestead that we have going on. I do have a back garden. In the back of the property in the chicken yard, it is a 15 by 15 square growing space. I have two raised garden beds back there that are 3 feet by 8 feet long, and then I also like to grow trellises all around them to try to maximize production. I also have a little trellis along the wall of the house that I have plans for to grow in. Last year we tried beans, and because of how much sunlight this gets in our hot West Texas Chihuahuan desert climate, it was a little too hot for beans. The beans kept dropping their flowers, but this year I have plans to plant something else in here. I do plan on coming out with a video really soon about what my garden plan is for 2021, so you're gonna have to stay tuned. But this is another garden space that we have, which brings us to our winter potted garden. This is my first year doing a fall winter garden, and I did at first try to sow seeds for a couple months actually in our back raised garden beds, but as it turns out, we don't get enough sunlight in those raised garden beds during the winter time, so I had to improvise. And this is the sunniest part of our property. It's tucked in right next to the back door, and we have potted plants that we are trying to grow for food for the winter. These guys are getting really big now. In the very back row, I have an artichoke. I actually have been getting a lot of questions about these artichokes. Artichokes are not what you would consider traditionally a frost hardy plant or something that you can grow in the winter. I have another one right back here, and he's surrounded by a couple of pansies. Now, artichokes are not recommended to grow if you can't keep them in a climate that's warmer than 25 degrees. If they get below 25 degrees, they can sustain frost damage. It's just not recommended. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get these artichokes to flower on their first year. Artichokes are what's considered a biennial plant. Oh, the sun is so bright. Artichokes are what are considered biennial plants, which means that you plant them on the first year, they grow, produce a lot of leafy green material, a lot of biomass, and then on their second year is when they flower and try to reproduce. Now, I don't know how long we're gonna be here for. My goal is I wanna get out of here. I wanna get started on our big homestead. I wanna get some land. So I'm not thinking 2 years out with my garden here. I'm going it year by year. So what I did with these artichokes is I'm growing them the winter of their first year, and I'm gonna have them overwinter. That way in the spring, their first year, I want them to flower and reproduce. I'm tricking the plant into thinking it's 2 years old by putting it through a winter when it's still a seedling. It's kind of tricky because if they get too cold, they can get frost damage and die. Artichokes can be perennials depending on what zone you're in, but it does take a lot of work to keep them alive throughout the winter. So follow along with this process and maybe we'll get lucky and get these guys through and get them flowering their first year. I think it's going for us that I have these in big pots so that it takes longer for the soil to cool down overnight. I also have them surrounded by a lot of biomass, a lot of plants, which is helping cushion them from the cold weather. They're also tucked against a wall, which shields them from some of the harsh winds. We regularly get 30-mile-an-hour winds out here. It's not unheard of for the winds to get up to 50 miles an hour. So we live in a super windy climate. Tucking these guys against that back wall provides them with so much protection from the wind. Overnight, I do cover these with that ugly plastic right there. This is just what's called a clear polyplastic. I believe this is the 6 mil, and this is a sheet that literally covers the whole thing and completely blocks it out of the wind, and it kind of creates a little bubble for these guys to sit in every single night. So every night when I cover them with this bubble of plastic, it kind of insulates them. It holds in that warm air from the day and it helps keep them alive through the night. So I usually put that on about an hour before sunset. On top, on the really cold nights, I also throw this simple bed sheet over the top. That's why it looks a little messy out here. Gotta get my winter crop protection out here ready to use, because if it's not right at my fingertips, you know it guys, I'm gonna forget to use it. And then our crops are gonna die. So that has been what's been keeping our little artichokes alive, and we are gonna just try to get them through the season. Look at how big this one's getting. I think this guy is bigger because he has some plants as little friends that help protect him as well from the wind, insulate him a little bit, and he's in the middle of this whole thing. This guy over here, he's on the edge and he doesn't have anybody else planted with him. This one was the bigger artichoke seedling when I put these in the pots, and he is slowing down, or not slowing down his growth, but he's just not quite as vigorous as that artichoke over there. So we're gonna keep an eye on him. He still looks really healthy, and we're gonna pull them through this winter as much as we can, as best we can. And I cannot wait until the spring to see if these guys survive the winter. Oddly enough, this is the coldest winter that I have seen here in this West Texas little town that we live in. We have been regularly getting down into the 20s at night. We've been getting down to 25 almost every night. That is literally maxed out for what an artichoke can handle. A couple days this week, I think we were down into the teens. One day it was 19, one day we got down to 15 degrees. But because I covered them and I had them surrounded by other plants, she gets jealous when I talk to you guys. She says, give me the love and attention, play with me. Also, when I'm messing with my plants, like bending over, she always gets in the way, like, why are you giving those plants attention? You need to love me. Right, Miss Evie? Oh my gosh, she's gonna knock me over. This dog is as long as I am, you guys. Borzois are big. She's actually on the smaller end of what a Borzoi is allowed to be. She's about 28 inches tall at the shoulder, and they can get well into the 30s as far as height goes. She loves kisses and cuddles. Okay, Evie, we gotta do a gardening video here. Like, she's like a cat. She rubs on me. You rub on me. And this is actually a normal weight. I do get a lot of questions about, why is your dog so skinny? Evie's what is called a sight hound. They are almost like a greyhound. Greyhounds are a type of sight hound, but this breed is bred to be faster than a wolf. They mostly hunted things like foxes and rabbits and things, but they were also capable of chasing down and hunting wolves. So she has to be fast. She's really lean. Evie's actually what's called a pet weight. She's a little bit thicker and heavier than what you'd want a working Borzoi to be. So she's a healthy eater, aren't you, Evie? Aren't you? Yeah. Okay, gotta get back to this video, Evie. All right, so on the back row, let's continue. We do have some cute little pansies that are flowering. I love that beautiful yellow pansy. We have 2 flowers over there, and I'm starting to get a purple flower on that other one in the corner. Hasn't opened up yet. Now that yellow flower over here has been open for more than a week now. I love how long those flowers are blooming. It just makes me really happy to add a little bit of pop of color to the garden in the winter when there's not a whole lot of color. Everything's kind of just green. I have a kale. This kale is a year old. I planted him last spring. He's hanging in there. Got some butter crunch lettuce. This is my favorite lettuce, you guys. I am not a huge fan of lettuce. I'm not a big salad eater. I'm trying because I know it's healthy. I've been eating more lettuce. It's so much easier to eat it when it's something that you grew yourself. But I'm telling you, I think I'm gonna try to grow butter crunch lettuce all the time. Every garden, every winter garden that I do, I need to add this because it's so buttery, it's crisp, it's a really light and kind of a really sweet and almost like a nutty lettuce. I really, really like it. Cauliflower is doing amazing. This is purple of Sicily cauliflower. It hasn't headed yet. It's still in the leafy growth phase, but it's doing really good. It is doing good on the warm days like today. Today's in the upper 60s. It also does really well and doesn't even bother about the cold weather. It's just doesn't skip a beat. And look at that. That leaf is huge, much bigger than my hand. I like how it has the purple veining on those pretty green leaves, and the head should be purple on this cauliflower. I have 4 cauliflower plants, and you can see that the 2 in the middle are doing much better than the 2 on the ends. I think they just get a little bit more protection from the cold weather at night than the ones on the ends are getting. Got some Swiss chard and spinach. I think this spinach is bolting. I started all of these indoors under a grow light, and I think that they were a little too warm when I started them. So my spinach looks like it's bolting. I don't know, what do y'all think? I've never grown spinach that looks like this before. And then I have Swiss chard that's doing pretty good as well. The Swiss chard does look a little stunted, but as long as it continues to grow, I will be happy. This kale, curly leaf kale, is amazing. This is the same variety as the kale I have in the back corner. This kale is growing so fast, and the young tender leaves on kale are the best. You've got to try it. This is more butter crunch lettuce. You can see the ones in the middle are doing so much better than the little guys on the end. They just don't get hit by as much wind or cool weather at night. So I've been harvesting about a leaf a day off of these, chopping them up on crispy tacos. They are just really, really good. I have shallots. This is black king pansy. Looks a little bit different than the pansy that's back there. And broadleaf sage. This, I believe, is arugula. It doesn't look like any arugula I've seen before, but it tastes just like arugula. And then more kale. That's the garden right here. Here in the back, I have early purple sprouting broccoli, which is hanging in there, getting eaten up by sparrows. The sparrows like to sit on the edge of this pot and just nibble away at these leaves, but it's hanging in there, doing good, getting a little bit eaten. These have had a little bit of frost damage as well because they're not quite as protected as my pots over there. And then of course I did have a chicken come and take a bite out of this. That is a story maybe for another day. Anyway, short version. Luis was coming out of here, opened the door, turned around because he forgot something, and Mary, which is that white chicken right there, slipped out through the gate, grabbed a bite. He turned around, grabbed her, put her back in. Mary's a mischievous little chicken. She is always getting into stuff. She's a lot of fun though. Luckily, the dogs are really good, and Evie actually loves the chickens. I don't think she would hurt them. And Dyson, he didn't even notice it happened so quick. We got her back in. In this pot, I also have purple kohlrabi. These are probably going to stay really small until I harvest the broccoli, because the broccoli is just going to shadow them out, kind of outcompete them a little bit. But I do think that these are going to hang in there and slowly keep on developing. And then once I'm able to harvest my broccoli and get rid of the broccoli, these kohlrabi should sprout on up and develop really nicely after that. I have some red romaine, which is just so beautiful. I think I'm gonna grow this every year because I'm in love with that just beautiful burgundy color. The bottoms of the leaves that aren't getting hit by any kind of light are green. And every time we get a frost, it just gets deeper and deeper red. I have noticed that this variety of lettuce is a little more bitter than my other varieties, and I'm already not a huge fan of lettuce. So I feel like this is more of an ornamental in our garden than food. I do put it into lettuce and, you know, foods that we eat with lettuce. I do put it into salads, but I noticed that I'm not harvesting from this one as much as the others because it's just a little bit more bitter than what I would like in a lettuce. I also have some carrots, and believe it or not, this is the best I've ever done with carrots. I'm terrible at growing carrots. I also have radishes and a couple beets growing up through here, but overall this garden bed has not been that great because we have a bunch of sparrows that just come and eat off of these, and I feel like they're topping the little seedlings before they really get a chance to get rooted and established. So that's been a little rough. I'm just gonna keep at it, keep watering this. I think the carrots are doing good. The birds haven't really messed with the carrots. They've mostly been eating the radishes and the beets, so that's all right. If I can get the birds distracted enough to let me finally get a crop of carrots, then maybe we can kind of sacrifice these radishes and beets. What do you guys think? Hey ladies, I'm sorry I don't have any food right now. I spoil y'all too much. I give them too many treats, and now when I come out here, they are always expecting me to give them treats. So if I don't have treats, they will just follow me around and complain until I go and get them like a handful of grubblies or a handful of chicken scratch or something. Oh, no chickens in the garden. Sorry, girls. I was telling you guys about this back garden where I have my 2 raised garden beds. I did try, I feel like I made a pretty good attempt to grow some winter vegetables out here, but it just hasn't been very successful. I do see a couple sprouts still hanging in there, but they're not getting past their cotyledon phase. They have their little tiny first leaves and are not developing true leaves because we're just not getting enough sun back here, I think, for them to thrive. I put this little makeshift greenhouse over them to try to help keep the heat in here, because I noticed that this microclimate during the winter is about 20 to 30 degrees cooler than the other side of the yard because it's always shaded. It's basically full shade all winter long, and it's crazy because it gets full sun in the spring and the summer, but during the winter, the way the sun moves, it just catches pine tree basically the whole day, and then by the time it's out of the way of the pine tree, it's hitting the wall. So it's just not been very successful to grow anything in the winter back here. I am, however, trying to grow something I actually sowed today, which is crazy because it's a little windy to try to sow anything. All right, guys, I decided to sow something in this pot today. This is the flower pot in the corner of my garden that I had okra in during the summer, and I put okra in here because it's the sunniest spot of the garden. It's afternoon right now, so it's starting to get a little shade from this rock, but this pot has had full sun for about half the day now, which is really good for the winter time. Now, I'm sure you guys are thinking, what in the world is Alex trying to grow the day after Christmas, December 26th? She's sowing seeds because she's a crazy gardener. Well, you guys, this would be a little too late to try to grow things like broccoli This would be a little too late to try to grow a lot of things, even winter vegetables, but it's not too late to grow what I'm about to show you. This right here is what I sowed today. Poppy seeds. I got 3 different varieties of poppies that I sowed. Poppies prefer moist, cool soil, and a lot of times they will be sown in late fall, early winter, and they'll grow, they're frost hardy, they'll grow up in a vegetative state during the winter, and by spring and summer they will start flowering. I tried to grow poppies last spring and I started them too late and they never got to flower because they just didn't have time, and then it got too hot and then they died. So I'm trying to grow these on the time when you're supposed to plant poppies in the winter. Now ideally I probably should have planted these a few weeks ago or several weeks ago, but I actually received these in the mail today from Baker Creek. So the day that I got them, I got right on it and said, it is wintertime, poppies are going in. Now poppies, they need light to germinate, so it's not something you want to bury really deep in the soil. What I did was I moistened the soil, patted it down a little bit, and then I just broadcasted some of these seeds over the soil, misted it in, and you don't really want to get them soaking wet because you don't want your seeds to wash away, and that's about it. Now my soil is not super great quality. I did put some potting soil on top, and but I basically was just running with the soil that we had in the spring. Poppies are basically a field flower. They don't need super nutritious soil to survive. So we're gonna see what we can get. The varieties that I chose are Sissinghurst White, which is from an English castle. We have Scarlet Peony Poppy, which is a beautiful, like almost like it looks like a carnation type poppy. And then what I'm most excited about is the Tangerine Gem, which is an orange poppy. This Tangerine Gem is drought tolerant, and we do live in the Chihuahuan Desert, and it's good for arid climates. I have had Tangerine Gem in my shopping wish list at Baker Creek since 2019. So I've had it in my shopping cart for almost 2 years now, and as soon as I saw it come back as in stock available, I stuck it in my shopping cart and I bought it because I didn't know when it was going to come back. I've been waiting for Tangerine Poppy for at least, you know, over a year and a half now, almost 2 years. So I couldn't be happier that I got this Tangerine Gem. I hope that they will flower and be really successful. I think these are going to be super beautiful and add a lot of color to our garden. And I can't wait to keep you guys updated and show you how they grow, if they grow. Now I want you guys to stay tuned. I do weekly garden tours during the growing season, and I want to keep you guys updated with what I'm growing, how it's doing, growth cycles, everything like that. So stay tuned. I already have my plan written out. I'm going to probably come out with a new video coming soon on what I decide to plant where. But you're gonna have to stay tuned. It's nothing like the garden I grew last year. I'm gonna be complete makeover. I learned a lot last year, what worked, what didn't work. So we're gonna be making a lot of changes, and I'm looking forward to a really successful growing season. So as y'all saw in my last video, Luis and I tested positive for that virus that's been going around this year. And so we've actually been quarantining. Today marks 3 weeks that Luis and I have been quarantining, which is just wild. So I told y'all in the last video all about what Luis and my results were and basically how we were doing during our time quarantining the first week and a half to 2 weeks. Now that we have been quarantining for 3 weeks, I myself am actually feeling so much better. I still have a little bit of fatigue here and there. I get winded, my endurance is a little bit low, but overall I am feeling a lot better. Luis, he is still feeling pretty bad. He's actually developed more symptoms since the last video. He has a pretty bad cough. He has really sore muscle aches, and he's been feeling a lot of... Hey guys, so my camera actually died. I'm not surprised. And so we're gonna finish this thing on my phone. Yasha is our resident lap chicken. She loves to sit on my leg when I'm hanging out here with the chickens. Right, Miss Yasha. Right, Miss Yasha. Little Dua's jealous. Look at you. What is it, Dua? Dua's looking really good, by the way. She was molting in the last update I showed you guys with her, and she's still molting a little bit, but most of her feathers are going back in pretty nicely. So overall, Luis and I are both hanging in there. We're still quarantining. We're waiting to get cleared by a doctor before we can return to work. Now, something that some of you guys may not know is that we actually are not just a household of two. We also have, oh, there she goes, she fell off. We also have Luis's sister, Jeanette, who lives with us. Now, Jeanette, she actually lives in a casita in our backyard, which is basically a studio apartment. So let me kind of talk to you guys a little bit about our family dynamic, our household dynamic. So there is Luis and I. We have been together for almost 7 years now, and we live in our little modest small home over here. Little 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And then we also have Jeanette. We call her Jean. She is Luis's little sister, and she actually lives out here in this casita. It's basically a studio apartment. So in the time that Luis and I started quarantining, as soon as we found out that we were not feeling well, she completely stayed out of the house and was just living in her casita and was not anywhere near us. So in the beginning stages, it was just Luis and I quarantining. She would go in and out through the back gate, and really we had no contact, just to keep her safe and keep her from getting the same illness that Luis and I got. Now, things changed when myself and Luis became positive. We have been in communication with my work, his work, her work, and throughout this whole process, they all agreed until we came out with a positive test result. As long as she was quarantining and staying away from us, she could continue to go to work. Now, since Luis and I both came out positive, they decided that she needed to start quarantining until we were better. So she came home and started quarantining after Luis and I got our positive test results. A couple days into her quarantine, she started feeling terrible. She broke out into a rash all across her face. Her face was swelling. So I'm thinking, like, is this a complication of the illness Luis and I got? It was a little different symptoms than anything that Luis and I went through. And my first thought was actually shingles, and it's super rare in anybody under the age of 60, really uncommon for young people. And Jean, she's 22 years old, so even though shingles came to mind, I kind of threw it into the back of our minds, and we're thinking, like, no, maybe this is just a side effect of that virus that Luis and I have. Maybe she got it too. Now, one morning last week, she woke up and her eye was completely swollen shut, where the rash had gone across her face, covered her eye. She couldn't open that eye, and that's when I told her that she needed to call the doctor. Since we were quarantining with this virus, we decided not to go to an in-person doctor visit. She actually did a FaceTime type doctor visit over the phone, where they were able to discuss symptoms. The doctor was able to see her, and he right away said, you have shingles, you need to go to the emergency room, you could lose your eyesight. So that's what she had to do. She actually drove 4 hours away to our nearest city, El Paso, and had to go to the emergency room to get checked out because we were sure that she had shingles. It turned out that she does have shingles. She has gotten really good, amazing medical care, and she is actually on the mend and doing a lot better. While she was in El Paso, she went ahead and got tested for that virus that Luis and I have, and she actually came out negative. So because her results were negative, and she's not showing any symptoms of that virus, just the shingles, we decided for her to go ahead and stay with my in-laws, Luis and her family over there, until Luis and I were out of quarantine. That way she couldn't get it, we wouldn't give it to her, and everything like that. So that's where she has been all week. She's been in El Paso, spending time with the in-laws, spending time with her family, and she is not here with us. So Luis and I had a Christmas, just the two of us, all alone. It was a very small gathering for Christmas, literally just the two of us, and we have been quarantining. So thank you guys for all of the well wishes. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Myrtle's not a lap chicken. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that wherever you guys are, you are enjoying this holiday season, having a Merry Christmas, and lots of joy. So there's lots of excitement coming up. I also want to share with you guys what is our plan for 2021 and moving forward on our little homestead. I also want to do a little tour and show you guys what my seed collection looks like. I'll show you where I store my seeds and what kind of seeds we have going on. What might grow this next year. You have to stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching.